This is Discuss EDM episode 4 with myself, Matt Jadon, and my guest today is Adam Turley. Adam, how's it going, man?
Rock on.
Finally knocked down a time. Awesome.
Yeah, dude. My bad.
It's cool. Just a little intro from myself in terms of like what I've seen of you and my impression. Like, you're a prolific singer-songwriter. I think that's probably the right term to use, but you also produce a lot of your own music, if not all of it. In fact, I was going through your discography before this, and I was like, this all has the same sound, so I reckon you've probably produced everything I heard. But yeah, it's super
unless it's
modern,
like a collab or something.
Yeah, legit. Super modern pop music. You've got over 200,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Most of that being self-released. I think it's all self-released, isn't it? You haven't got anything.
We can get into that a little bit later, but not all of it has. Okay. But I can kind of elaborate on that in a bit.
Yeah, sure. And then also TikTok is the other thing I noticed you on recently. Like just like 85,000, isn't it? Like followers or something.
Yeah.
And that's crazy, man. But yeah, I just wanted to start how I kind of start all of these things off, because I only really know so much about yourself, and it's nice to kind of delve into backstory, especially for people who, you know, perhaps like your music but don't really know much about you. So what were your music interests like growing up? Like, did you have a strong musical influence in the family? What kind of music were you into, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I would say definitely strong like influences of music in my family. My parents aren't musicians, but my mom, like at a very young age, directed like this. It was called Sunshine Generation. It was like this singing and dancing group for like children.
Nice.
So she put us in that when we were little, and she was like the instructor, and that was like my first introduction to music. And then, you know, as I started getting older, I started playing the drums because one of my friends had a drum kit, and I got way into like, you know, rock music and very, very modern rock music at the time. So I never really got into like classic rock or any of those types of rock. I was really into like, I remember like the first song I learned to play on the drums that I was so stoked about was a song called The Kill by 30 Seconds to Mars.
Yeah, that's a sick song.
I don't know if you remember that song or know that song. Yeah. But that was like my first introduction to music, and from there I got really into like hardcore music and like post-hardcore stuff. And my brother's 2 years older than me, and him and his friends created a hardcore band, and I was like the keyboard player, but secretly like just wanted to be the drummer. And then so I listened to a lot of like punk and like post-hardcore and like the whole emo scene, you know what I mean? Like I was really into like Mayday Parade and The Main, and like I just re-downloaded that whole Boys Like Girls album that has like 5 Minutes to Midnight and Hero and Thunder. That album's insane, actually.
Yeah,
so many hits. But I was like really into that whole thing. I think that's really like influenced me musically for sure. And yeah, from there I got really into like John Mayer. After I started singing it when I was 15, and I wrote my first song when I was 15. And from there I just like kind of ditched the drums kind of and I just focused on songs, because that became like my new obsession. It's like even when I was in bands, I always like I was kind of picky about what my bandmates did. Like what I'm trying to say is that I always like heard the full picture. So I like kind of like would look at the bassist or drummer and be like, no, you should like do this, because I think that's why I naturally started producing, because I always like heard the full thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to like just like I'm not really good at any instrument. Like I'm not like amazing. I can't shred on anything. I can dabble on everything, and I can like make it into a song, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where my strength lies, and that's why I like doubled down on that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting that you started out with drums, and because that's similar to my background. Like I started out with drums from when I was like 5, and then I got involved in like a few band type things at school. But similar to you, like I could just never, I was never satisfied with what everyone else was doing. I was just like, no, I want you to be playing like this, or this isn't working, or, and then it's almost like a bit of like a control freak nature like comes out. You're like, no, I want this to sound like this and that to sound like that. And then you start making your own music. I literally talked to like at least half a dozen people who say that that's how they got into producing. Like they come from a band background and they're just like, it's not working. Like I want to do my own thing. Cause,
yeah, bro. We are the same. I always felt like really annoying and selfish for that, but like, it's nice when you have like a creative vision to like have just to be able to create it. And then, you know, I actually had to learn because I was like a lone wolf for a long time because I was just wanted to like do it myself, right? And just more recently in the past year and a half, I've like really, like I say had to, but like it's been a huge blessing. It's been awesome. I've like opened myself up to a lot more collaboration, and it's been like it's amazing. Like collaborating in a healthy way is just like the best thing, and it's like what it makes the music so much better. It's more fun. I love it. So
yeah. I was talking to there's a guy called Highball. I'm not sure if you know of him, but he just like
I think he has remixes, right?
Yeah. He does loads of remixes. And I think now he's like a bit more behind the scenes. He's like quite often in LA. But him and I went to university together, and before he like blew up with his remixes. But he was saying that like I used to do collaboration sessions with him, and he used to hate it. Like whenever I'd come over, he was like, you could tell he just wanted to like do his own thing. But then after a while, he was like, actually, I really enjoy those sessions because you come up with new stuff that you would never otherwise come up with, you know, by yourself, and other people like their influence meshes with yours, and like it's just nice. Like it's a different creative process, I think.
Yeah. So when you dude.
Yeah, man. When you actually started producing, what did that look like? Were you making beats? Were you trying to make full-fledged songs? Like what did that look like?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So it kind of when people ask me when I started producing, it's always kind of tricky to tell them an answer, because if you count it like technically, I started like actually making beats and like producing when I was like in 8th grade or 9th grade, like just making beats on GarageBand, you know? But I didn't know what producing was. Like I didn't understand, and this is something I wish, I'm like so envious of like Gen Z, because
are you not like, part of Gen Z? How old are you?
No, I'm a millennial for sure. I'm 26.
26. Yeah, probably just. I'm 25, so just outside, I guess. But yeah, sorry.
I guess. I don't know. Maybe I am Gen Z. I don't know anything. But you know, I like made like funny rap beats with my friends. But I didn't really understand that like the same software I was using, which I was using Logic at the time, I didn't understand that like I could actually use that software to create like an actual like dope piece of music that, you know, could potentially, I didn't have the skill set, but like I had the tools to make something that, you know, could be played on the radio. I didn't get that. I always thought that you had to like go pay for a crazy huge studio. I was still like in that mindset, you know what I mean? So apologize, super long-winded answer, but I started making beats in high school. I recorded some songs, nothing serious. It wasn't until I was like 21 that I really dove into like being a producer and like really learning. So
obviously you started making some beats in school, like started getting involved and thinking about music and being like, oh, this is a fun thing to do. When did it become something where you were like, I want to do this? Like it's not only fun, but I actually want to pursue this as a profession. Like it's not just a hobby for me.
Yeah, I think I had that moment more as an artist than I did as a producer. Like, you know, I think the moment where I was like, I want to do this was still when I didn't know what producing was. But it led me like to producing, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
The main moment I can remember, I was at a concert a guy named a singer-songwriter, like pop guy named Matt Carney. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. I was at his show here in Salt Lake City where I live, and I was just watching him on stage, and I was like, dude, I like have to do that. I have to pursue this so that I can be on a stage like that and people can be singing my songs. And here we are still trying to make that happen. But
awesome.
I remember that being the moment that I was like, yeah, I want to do this.
For sure, man. And have you done much live stuff? Like I've seen obviously on your Instagram, you've got a few concerts and like snaps from it and stuff, but obviously I'm from the UK, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, exactly. I've done a few shows, but like that definitely hasn't been the strategy. Like I haven't like focused on shows a ton yet because the strategy more so has just been releasing a lot of good music consistently, and build my online presence to a point where if I do play a show that there's people that will go, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like build the following and then start doing the live stuff.
Yeah, because the live stuff is like really it's really time consuming, and it's a lot of energy to put into something. And I mean, at least where I live, like I just feel like my time is better spent and I can reach more people with the music than I would be able to like playing at local venues every weekend, you know?
Yeah, I mean, because you live in Los Angeles, right? There must be hundreds, if not thousands, of people doing stuff locally.
I actually don't live in Los Angeles yet. I live in a place called Salt Lake City.
Oh, okay. My bad.
But I'm moving to LA next year, so I'm excited about that.
But yeah, like even so, I mean, so I know Salt Lake City, I know obviously, again, a big city, like maybe not as crazy, full of musicians and creative people as Los Angeles, but there's still going to be, hundreds of people gigging at the weekends and, trying to build an audience that way. Like it's difficult to stand out, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it makes much more sense. Yeah, I'm going to scrap my LA-based questions then, because I thought you lived in LA.
Sorry, bro. Yeah, I like go out to LA every 5 to 6 months, but I don't live there yet.
Sure. Well, I mean, that could be the next question. What is it actually like working in Los Angeles? I've spent a bit of time over there. I've done a very minor bit of work, and I've worked with people online from Los Angeles, but what's it like getting stuck in and doing studio sessions and working with other people?
Yeah, so when I've gone down to LA for music, I've had like some super interesting experiences. Like the first time I went out there, I had just barely signed with my manager, and things were really new. And basically, trying to figure out a good way to put this. Basically, we ended up working with a producer that had produced some bigger songs, I would say in like the early 2010s or late 2000s. He had a few like bigger hit songs, and I was more so developing. I mean, I'm still developing, but like as far as like getting my production to a competitive level and everything, like I was almost there, but I was still very trying to figure it out. And so we went down there. That my manager's idea was like, oh, let's go work with this big producer because, first of all, he can bring the track to a new level, but maybe he has connections for us, you know what I mean? So we went down and we went to record. First of all, we went to like meet him at this place called Soho House. I don't know if you know what Soho House is.
It does ring a bell.
It's like, I don't want to like, so Soho House is basically like, it's like a club where they have like a restaurant in it and there's lounge areas and stuff, but it's like for super high class people.
Right.
So you can imagine like, and they have one in like a lot of major cities. So like they have one in Chicago and New York, and I bet they have one in London. And it's kind of like where the rich, they're honestly just saying it, that's like where a lot of rich people go to hang out or do work or network or do meetings when they're in these big cities.
Sure.
So you can imagine the one in LA is like next level.
Unreal.
So me and my brother were down there with my manager. We walk in and I think we saw like Gerard Butler, like the guy that played the dude in 300.
Yeah.
Like we just walked right past him and like went upstairs, and it's just a different world, bro. It's just so interesting. I felt super out of place. Like, oh, I'm just from a suburb in Salt Lake City. You know what I mean? I'm not like, this isn't my thing. But it was fun, and we went and we were supposed to have a studio session to cut the vocals for the song I was working on with that producer at the time, and the studio got booked out from under us like last minute because it got booked out under us from the guy told us it was Ariana Grande, Pharrell, and Future, the rapper. It was just like wild because I was like, what is happening?
As about, it's probably quite difficult to argue with that, right?
Oh yeah, I was like, yeah, sure, take the studio. But anyways, that was like, you know, one fun experience I had in LA. Other than that, like actually working, I haven't like, I've done like a few sessions when I gone down. I haven't like dove into it completely. I've been doing a lot of Zoom sessions with people in LA, which is great, but it doesn't feel too terribly different than the sessions that I've done here, as honestly. You know, it's just kind of where you are. And like one of the things that's drawing me to LA is just being surrounded physically with like-minded people and people who take this really seriously. You know what I mean? Because I'm like super serious about making this happen. And obviously that's where talent like pools. So I just want to surround myself with people that are way better than me so that I can get better and elevate my artistry and skills. So
yeah, I know, I 100% agree. Like, it's the same thing for me. I only live like 20 minutes outside of London on the train. Like, I can commute in so easily, but it's just not the same as being like in amongst it, like having people literally like a walk away who are like a producer or a DJ or another singer, or, you know, you can just meet up. And again, obviously with coronavirus, everything's virtual nowadays at the moment. But like, I think in general, I mean, Hyber was talking about it. He was just like, he used to do so much work with people from Los Angeles all the time, but it was only when he actually went over there, started like networking with people, you know, getting in the studio with people, like you notice a massive difference. Because same as you, I've done loads of like online Zoom-based, you know, production sessions, and then you go meet that person in real life, and it's completely different. Like, I just find it so much more productive, like to be you know, in person.
Yeah, and it's different, like, especially right now with COVID and, like, Zoom sessions. Don't get me wrong, I've had some great Zoom sessions, but it's tough. It's, like, different to not be in the same room as someone. There's just a different energy, you know what I mean? It's, like, it's more palpable when you're in a room with someone. It's more exciting, and so that's definitely a plus to being in the same
you can kind of latch onto the same vibe, can't you? Like, you're working on something, it's instantaneous, whereas when you're working on Zoom there might be like a little bit of a delay, and it's, I don't know, it just makes it a little bit
that's the best way to put it. It's like you can catch, I hate to say it because it's so oversaturated and overused, but it's like easier to catch a vibe in the studio, you know?
Yeah, for sure, man. So I wanted to touch on, obviously right at the beginning I mentioned that a lot of your stuff is self-released, and you were like, oh, actually, you know, there's some, it sounded like you were trying to do some label stuff as well. Like, are you fully self-releasing at the moment, or are you planning on working with a record label soon, or are you already working with a record label?
Yeah, so I'm like technically, I don't even know, technically, at least the general use of the word, like I'm an independent artist. Like, I'm fully independent, meaning like I own all my masters. No one owns my masters. But that doesn't mean that I haven't had like assistance or help or push from certain people to help my music grow. You know what I mean? Which most people that say they're independent are not, like, they have something like this going on. But yeah, so like my first 5 or 6 songs were completely independent, like just me uploading to DistroKid. And it wasn't until my song It's Alright, I put it out independently just like the ones before it, but an independent label under Warner Records hit me up, and they liked the song, they heard it, and they wanted to license it. So we ended up doing that deal, and essentially the song was like re-released, but from the consumer's perspective, it wasn't re-released. It just stayed up. It never got taken down. But on the back end, it was like re-released, re-pitched, and then yeah, it got placed like on a big Spotify playlist, which was awesome for me and helped the song like grow to, you know, over 4 million streams. And then from there, I worked with them a little bit more on a few releases, but then decided to step away. And now I'm in a similar kind of thing where I'm releasing through a distributor that's very similar to DistroKid, but I like work directly with their like pitching team to like help the music be placed in certain places and things like that.
Nice. And I wanted to touch upon just from that, you know, you talked about doing a lot of that initial stuff yourself. I've noticed that your marketing and like your social media is really professional is the only way the only word I can think of. I mean, even your first couple of releases from 2017, like all the artwork is really coherent, like, you know, your logo's really professional, like you kind of had that professional look from the start. So I wanted to know, like, was that always the case, or was that something you picked up from someone, or did you do like some learning with a coach, or just YouTube tutorials?
Do you mean as far as like designing the artwork, or just like making sure that cohesiveness happened?
Yeah, just the kind of general marketing stuff, so the artwork, but also, you know, like your Instagram is, a lot of the content on there I would say is super professionally shot and put up.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, I appreciate that. So I guess the best answer is that so some of the stuff I've done on my own, like for example the artwork for the first 5 or 6 releases that you said is like very cohesive. It's like the white background with whatever is on it. That I had a designer design like a few of them, and then we bought like the assets, like the Photoshop assets from him, so that I own them, and then I could just like, you know, for the next release I didn't have to have him make it. I would just like put in whatever icon or whatever describe the next song, and I could just do it myself. And as far as like marketing and like the visual stuff, I don't know. I'm not like, I make a lot of it myself, but I'm not like amazing at that stuff. I just more so I feel like I just have an eye for like what looks cohesive and what looks good. I'm not necessarily the best at achieving it, but if necessary I'll enlist help to achieve that. But to answer your question, I haven't had any really like marketing lessons or anything. Yeah, dude, I don't know. I just do the best that I can.
I'm surprised, man, because yeah, like I'm working myself with a guy called Adam Ivy. I don't know if you've heard of him. Like he does a lot of Instagram and music-based marketing. Cool. But he, like, my social media was shit. It was awful. Like I barely even had an Instagram for my music up until last year. I was super like irregular with posting and all that kind of stuff. And he basically tore it apart and taught me a bunch of principles. I'm still learning now. But the moment I saw your stuff, I was like, oh, this guy's clearly done, you know, the same sort of thing. Like you've enlisted the help of some sort of marketing guru, because it's all like very cohesive and like just everything is formatted really nicely. So yeah, I'm surprised, man. It looks sick. So props.
Thanks, man. Yeah, honestly, a lot of it too. Like I steal a lot, and I don't mean that in like an actual theft way, but like I learn a lot from other people's stuff. So if I think someone's page looks good or someone's artwork looks cool, like I'll steal little ideas here and there from other people and like combine them into like my own thing. And I feel like that's art in general. You know what I mean?
100%.
That's like, we all do that with music. There's some quote out there that describes that better than I just said it.
For sure. Do you ever use like reference tracks when you're producing? Like, do you ever just pull another track in and be like, oh, I want to try this?
Yeah, I do more so when I'm mixing than I do when I produce. I don't do that a ton when I produce. And I've tried to like veer away from that. I heard something the other day though that I really liked. Like one guy was I was watching an interview of a producer that I like, and he was saying that he references like older songs when he's working. So he'll reference like a song that did really well, like a hit from like 2005, and he'll try to like think about like what made that song a hit, and then he'll try to like combine that with today's world. I think that's smart.
Yeah,
I've tried to veer away from what I used to do when I first started producing, and I feel like this is fine when you're starting out, which is I'd hear a new song from my favorite artist that came out that day, and then I would just like go make something super similar, and I've tried to like veer away from that because I feel like you're just chasing something that's like, by the time you put yours out, it's like it already happened, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. That was actually going to be one of my questions to you, because I would consider your music now to be very modern, like super modern, in terms of it's right up there with, I'm on the spot, I'm probably going to struggle to think of like other artists, but like what I'd expect to hear on the radio, especially, you know, in America and in Los Angeles, like from when I've been over there, whenever I listen to the radio, I feel like it really reflects what's right at the, you know, cutting edge of music. Do you think that's just happened naturally, or are you consciously trying to produce stuff that's really modern? Like, are you trying to chase a trend, or are you kind of just trying to do your own thing and it's coming out like that?
You know, that's a great question. I feel like I don't necessarily think about like sounding modern all the time. I just try to sound cool and good and what I think is dope. And I think I'm having a lot more success with having more tracks that feel completely like my own thing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still not there completely yet, and I don't know if I ever will be, because I feel like there's always gonna be like a song or two that I'm like, oh yeah, this song was like heavily inspired by this other song that I like, which is fine. It's not a bad thing. But I've been having more and more songs that just like start from me playing the guitar, or like start from me making something random in Ableton, and then I just make it without thinking about any other songs. You know what I mean? Which is really, really fun and cool. Like, the next song I'm putting out is like, I don't know, it's just like feels unique to me. Even feeling myself that I just put out, like, that song was something that it had a vibe that I felt like it's something that I hadn't done before, and that one felt super organic to me, where I wasn't like I was actually inspired to write that song because of a different song that I wrote. Like, I was finishing this other song, and I was listening to the outro of it, and as soon as the outro ended, it's weird because I was like thinking in album mode, because I'm putting out like an album / full length project collection. I don't know what I'm gonna call it. And so I was thinking about like where in the album that song that I just finished is gonna lie. And then as that song finished, I was like, I just heard the guitar for Feeling Myself in my head, and I was like, oh, and this vibe needs to be next. And so I made that whole song, if that makes sense. So it's just like, it's weird. Inspiration comes from all over the place, but I feel I'm super content with like where I'm at and where I'm headed, and the music I'm releasing. I feel really good about it all, and it all feels really true to me and fun. So
awesome, man. I really liked in particular of I'm not sure if it's like the latest EP you put out, but Gemini, that track on I was genuinely had that on repeat, like just for like a day. I just thought everything, like the production was super sleek, and like the melodies, and also like that's another thing I wanted to ask you about is your vocal producing. It always sounds super clean and super like perfectly tuned, but not like overdone. You know, like you hear a lot of modern pop music, and sometimes you're like, I can hear auto-tune like struggling with this vocal, whereas yours just sounds really fluid and quite nice. I wanted to ask, like, vocal production, was that something that was self-taught, or did you pick up some skills from working in studios and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've learned a lot from other people, but mostly on YouTube, like mostly on the internet. I've for sure learned a thing or two here and there from like people in person or friends or whatever. But the majority of it has been like vocals are like the bane of my existence. Like like I've spent so many hours, bro, like hundreds, probably thousands of hours.
Yeah.
Like trying to either mix a vocal or like tune a vocal or like just do whatever it takes to like make it sound the way that I hear like my favorite record sound, you know, and so it's mostly like I can't say self-taught, like I said. I've learned a ton on the internet. A lot of it has just been trial and error and just experimenting on my own. That's the only way I can really explain it. Is just like all the information's online, but I couldn't figure it out until I had spent a lot of time doing it. You know what I mean?
I guess you have the benefit of like, because you're performing the vocal as well, you can kind of go back in and recomp stuff. Like if you were vocal producing for someone else, it can be a bit laborious. It can be like back and forth, like, oh, can we just redo this bit, or can you resend that? Like, especially if it's online, like then it gets really tricky, because you're like, oh, can you redo this bit? Whereas in your head, you know exactly what you're going for and you're singing, so you can just go in and do a few takes, be like, I want to change this, and I guess it's a little bit quicker. Still doesn't take away from the fact that you have to spend like hours and hours, you know, getting it right, but at least you're more in control.
Yeah, but you're right. It's like I've really figured out my voice and like what works with my voice, like processing wise or whatever, as well as like the mic I use, as well as the way that I like to sing to, you know, get certain emotions across. So that's a really good point. Honestly, it's helped me a lot just as a vocal producer too, because I've learned what I need to do as a vocalist to like express things a certain way. And so I'm able to like coach a little bit better when I work with other vocalists.
For sure,
if that
man.
makes sense.
Do you do much production for other people, or is it predominantly for yourself at the moment?
Yeah, I do actually. And I've been getting into it more. I've been working on some projects I'm like super stoked about. Actually, there are a couple of more prominent artists I'm working with, or at least that are like at a similar level as me or a little bigger.
Yeah.
And which is really the direction. I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to work with talented people, right? But at the same time, I really want to kind of dive into that world a little bit more and make that more of a component of my career, because I'm obsessed with production. I love producing.
Yeah.
So I love working on other people's songs that I think are dope.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, a couple of the people I've had on the podcast were all, that's kind of like a reoccurring theme. It's just like they're all guys that just, they're obsessed with production. Like they love it. They will happily. I've never met anyone who is successful in music production who wouldn't just happily spend 12 hours sat there doing it. And it's quite alien to other people who don't really have something similar, like especially people who are maybe non-creative or don't really have like a similar passion. They're like, what the fuck? Like, that's so weird. How can you sit behind a screen for, you know, because maybe they sit behind a screen for 8 hours at the office, you know, working in a spreadsheet or whatever. But, you know, it's an interesting one. Everyone has always said, I'm just obsessed with production. I could do it for hours. So that's awesome, man.
Absolutely.
If you weren't doing music, I mean, you mentioned to me just before we started recording, you've got a day job, right? Is there anything else that you would be doing if it wasn't for music? Have you got any other like hobbies that are come sort of second place to music, or?
If I wasn't doing music, I feel like I could be actually like really happy, or at least pretty happy, doing like photography or videography. I don't know a lot about that stuff. Like I know the basics. I have like a decent camera and stuff. I'll take pictures of my family or make like videos for our family trips and stuff. But and I've been able to like do a lot of my promo content and stuff just with my equipment I have, and I really enjoy that. So I could see myself doing something like that, or just anything in like the business world. But that's like if I have to, you know.
Yeah. I think we're in the same boat on that front. Like, yeah, I'm paying the rent with a day job, but realistically, if I had to pick, you know, it wouldn't be down that. It's a challenging one. I find it interesting because there are a lot of people who are successful in music who are real advocates for just dropping everything, living like a homeless person for as long as you can. You know, like in the UK, we've got benefits that you can live off, like government benefits. I'm sure you have the same in the US, like, and trying to do that for as long as possible whilst making as much music and trying to make it work. But I don't know, man. I did that for like 6 months when I left university, and I just found it so stressful, like having, just music to do and be like, shit, I need to make this work, otherwise I'm fucked. So I wondered, like, did you go through a similar thing, or have you always been working on the side? Like,
yeah, great question. I think that's like kind of a controversial thing, and I definitely have my opinion about it. Like, I mean, I just don't think there should be any blanket statements, right? That could be totally right for someone, but not right for everyone. And you're so right. It doing that like puts this certain pressure on the music that, especially when you're like poor and you're like, you're counting on that. I get it. Like if you're doing music full time, but like you're just chilling, like you're doing well in music and like you're not super worried about money, then it's different, I think.
Yeah.
But a couple things about just quitting everything and just doing it, like what you said, is one, you're gonna be settling, like you're gonna be a lot of times forced to settle to work on projects that like you don't want to work on, but you're only working on because you need to make money. And I had an experience with that like 2 years ago. I did the same thing. Like I actually had a decent sized client, like local clientele of people I was producing for at the time. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to quit my job and just do music. And I did that for like a year, a little over a year. And it was great. Like it was fine. But what I found is that I was taking all these projects that I was just doing because I needed to make money. I wasn't like excited about them at all. And that was just not good for my creativity and my creative brain. It's like it took the fun out of music. Like I got kind of sad because it was like music has always been this amazing fun thing, and then all of a sudden it like wasn't. And it just made it kind of drained me when I went to go work on my music. I was like just kind of uninspired. And so I think that's just like one of the dangers of it. Like I was telling my friend the other day, I've really just moved into working on projects that I'm passionate about. And that's why I kind of still have a day job, is so that I don't have to worry as much about paying rent. And the projects I take on I really like. And the point here is that it allows me to work to capacity. Like I can actually do my best work because I feel a certain way about the music, and I can't do the best Adam Turley production or the best writing or whatever I'm doing if I'm not into it. I just can't, like, I can't fabricate that, if that makes sense. So I just don't really see the point of working on all these projects just to make money, because and it's not the long-term game. Like it's not the long-term solution for me. Maybe some of the projects I'm working on right now aren't giving me the most money up front, but I'm building my portfolio and discography so that later down the road, when there's a huge opportunity, like I can take it because I've proved myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that, and I think that's an attitude that's not really advertised that much. I think there's so many people who are big in the music industry who can quite happily, like now obviously they're successful, so they're like, yeah, like you should drop everything and jump into music, like if you're passionate about it like I am and you want success like me. But I think for a lot of people it would just do what it did to me or yourself, where you're working on stuff for money, you're not really passionate about it, music becomes a job, but in the like negative sense of that word, like you're just kind of clocking in, clocking out, doing what you need to do. I think the reason so many of us enjoy music production is because it's something different. Like you spend 8 hours in the office or doing whatever, and then you're like, right, I want to do something creative now. I've spent all day crunching numbers or whatever it is, like whatever bullshit you do for a day job. You get home and you're like, okay, now it's me time. Like I can do what I want and I can be creative.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
100%. What kind of music are you really into at the moment? Like, are there any artists that you're keeping an eye on, or even just like big artists that you're a big fan of right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's check out my liked songs on Spotify.
It's always a good way.
Yeah, some people I've been really loving, like as far as like modern, like big artists or upcoming artists or hot artists right now. I'm like a huge Bieber fan, so I love the new Bieber song. I love everything he does. I really like I've been getting into the rapper singer Black a lot lately.
Yeah, I like Black as well.
My brother is a huge fan, and he's been trying to put me onto him for a long time, and I finally gave in. I don't know why. I don't know why I resisted for so long.
Yeah, he's awesome.
But his East Atlanta Love album, I've been listening to that a lot. It's so good. And yeah, other than that, Sasha Sloan is amazing. I love her. Her songwriting is insane and just so relatable and great. Bozzy's one of my favorites. Been loving like the JP Sax stuff. It's been really good. Always love Jeremy Zucker. John Bellion's like my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people.
There's a lot of like strong singers in there as well. Like especially Bieber. Like I can tell where the influence comes from. Like really trying to like, because like I said a little bit earlier, I think your vocal sound is just super sleek. I don't know if that's the right word, but like just polished. Do you know what I mean? Like just really really well formulated, and like it doesn't surprise me that you mentioned some of the big names there that you're really into, because I can definitely hear that. Going a little bit sort of off that topic and into more general stuff, I guess, like what I always like to ask this question because I always get slightly different answers, but what do you think keeps you driven with music? Because obviously, you know, it's a bit of a treacherous path to choose to go down. There's so many obstacles, especially when you're starting out. You know, you get rejection left, right and center, whether it's from labels, whether, like in my case, it's other DJs, you know, trying to get them to play my songs, like that kind of stuff. Like what do you think keeps you going and keeps that kind of positive mindset instilled?
Yeah, I think number one is the love of music. Like I can't say never say never, but rarely do I wake up and like don't want to do music. Like I just love it. Like it's like everything to me. So just the love of it really drives me. The possibility of like creating something new and amazing that day just really excites me. And then other than that, like I have an amazing support system around me. I'm married. My wife is extremely supportive of me, and my parents and family and everyone around me has just always been so supportive of my career choice.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
so yeah, they like, considering my circumstances, it's been fairly easy. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's freaking hard. Like there's a lot of self-doubt that comes into play here just for anyone pursuing this, but luckily, like the confidence and support has been like more prominent than the self-doubt, which is great.
Yeah, that's always good. Do you have like a similar support circle like within music as well? Like do you have other producers that you're sending stuff to all the time, or other singers?
Yeah, I have, especially now that I've started doing like these writing retreats. I've only done one so far. I'm doing another one in January, but yeah, I'm starting to build. I can't say I'm starting to build, but I'm starting to become part of a kind of a bigger group of creative people. And I mean I have friends that I've met through different places that are, you know, all over the country and or world, you know what I mean? But yeah, I definitely feel like more connected than I was 2 years ago, and it's just cool to just like I was talking about earlier, just meet like-minded people, because especially when you're kind of isolated in a smaller place, or when there's when you don't know a lot of people that produce or that make music, it's always such an awesome thing to kind of see that evidence that there are people just like you who are like have the same goals and same taste in music, and like, you know what I mean, you can really work together and give each other feedback and help each other out. So
yeah, for sure,
it's a good thing.
100%. Like I'm always a huge advocate of I quite often get people who are relatively sort of new in the music production world asking me like, what's your advice, like how do I start out doing this, like what would you recommend? And I'm always like, build some form of like support network, or some form of, even if that's just signing up to like a forum online, or you know, like a subreddit or something, but somewhere where you can actually put your music out to other people who are trying to do the same thing, who are hopefully like maybe a little bit better than you, so you can start learning from them, and picking things up that you didn't know before. And like competition, I think, is such a huge element of making your own music better. Like for myself, for example, I went to university. I've been producing since probably about 2009, and I went to university in about 2013. And from 2009 to 2013, my music was just stagnant. Like there was nothing going on. Like it was all just, I didn't improve really at all. And then I got to university, and like you said, I met loads of other people who were DJs, into dance music, into music production, into pop music, and all of a sudden, when I look back through my discography, you can just see it suddenly go up, because that competition, you're like, oh fuck, this person's doing this, or this sounds way better. And I think it's so key for growth.
Oh, so key. That's why I tell anyone, like, some people DM me and like ask me sometimes, like, should I go to school for music production? I think that's a great question. And like for me, if I was at this point, even if I could go back and go to school, the only reason why I would go to school is to be surrounded by peers that like are better than me, because that's where I would learn, you know what I mean? It's like, of course you'd learn some from your instructor, but I doubt it's going to be a lot of stuff that you can't find online.
Yeah, 100%. And even like in the DJ world, but also, so for example, I live in a place called Surrey. It's like a county, and there's a city called Guildford that has something called ACM in it, which is like the Academy of Contemporary Music. And Ed Sheeran went there for like a couple of months before dropping out, because he was like, I've met everyone and that's it. Like I'm not actually learning anything now. And I think there's some other big names as well. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but their official alumni is really short, because barely anyone who's successful who went to that music college like finishes the course, because they're like, I've already met everyone, I've done my networking, I'm not really learning anything now, because a lot of the instructors are kind of, what's the right term? Almost like wannabes. Like they're kind of people who maybe wanted to become professional songwriters or professional DJs, whatever it may be, and they couldn't. So, you know, the whole saying, like, if you can't do, teach, like, obviously that's a bit of a cliche, but like that kind of rings true, I think, in some of those places. So it's interesting that you get asked that as well. And yeah, I'm just thinking now, I had another DJ friend who is really popular in the kind of underground bass music scene over here. I've asked him this question. He's just like, I would go for the reasons that you said, you know, to be around like-minded people who are trying to achieve the same things. But in terms of the actual course and what you're taught, like, I think it's negligible sometimes. There's a really cool one in Los Angeles, isn't there? Icon. Have you heard of that? Icon Collective? Yeah. Yeah,
that's one of the places that I would like. I have a friend that's there, and that's one of the places I would go if I was going to go to school.
Yeah.
Because the program is actually really, really cool there. I don't know if it's worth the money, like, especially if you're broke, like in the US, like the government in most cases, I mean, unless you have a scholarship or a grant or something, is not going to pay for all your school. And it just doesn't make sense to me to pay 20 grand to go to school and then graduate and have no, like, honestly, not a very good chance that you're going to get a job anywhere.
Yeah, no, it's true.
It just doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean?
The tuition fees thing is crazy over there. Like I've got another friend who is just like a long time friend from LA, and we were talking about school fees because he went down the academic route in like his life in general. I think he's only just recently got a job, and he's like a year older than me, so he's about 26, same age as you. But he's been in college, you know, since like 18, I guess. So for the last almost sort of 8 years of his life, and the amount of debt that he's racked up like doing that is just bonkers.
Insane.
Like college is expensive over here, but you can get, I think, pretty much all of it covered off by the government. And then the way that the loan payback system works, it's like if you come out of college and you earn X amount of money, it's only gonna, the government are only going to take X amount to repay that loan. So there's lots of people who don't actually ever pay back their loan full stop, because it's like they never earn enough money to do it. That's a whole different like issue, I guess. But yeah, the US tuition fees, like you said, especially if you're a broke musician or like wannabe musician, like that's the last thing you need is just a big pile of debt thrown into your bank account.
Exactly, especially in an industry that like doesn't ask for a diploma or doesn't ask for a graduation certificate, you know?
Yeah, I always think it's so like, you know, that Jason Derulo track, the one recently that was based off the little
Savage
TikTok
Love.
Yeah, that's like, so the producer behind that, my brother and I were, well, my brother was like almost teasing me about it. He was like, look at this kid, he's like 17, right? The producer of that little TikTok beat that then Jason Derulo turned into the full song. He's like 16, produces that tiny little like ringtone sounding thing that could have been made in like 2005, right? The guy's now got like a deal with Sony, he's got management, he's got, you know, X amount of money, and I'm just like, fuck's sake, like what's the point?
It's insane, dude. It's so crazy.
But I think it's just testament when you see guys like that, you're like, yeah, you don't need a degree, you don't need academic stuff unless you feel like it's really going to help you. Like I never advise anyone to, because there's so much good stuff online nowadays. Like, yeah, man.
Yeah, dude, there's a wealth of information for sure.
Yeah, so final question from me. Obviously, we talked a little bit about what you want to achieve and what you're trying to do. Like, what is the idea in your head where you can be like, I've made it? Like, what's the scenario? Is it, you know, doing stadium tours worldwide? Is it like producing for super high profile artists? Like, what's your idea of I've made it?
That's a great question. So I feel like while I do have like aspirations to do those huge things, like I don't think that's too far out. You know what I mean? Like I really believe in myself that I'm like capable of achieving things like that. But at the same time, like I would be so happy. Like I feel so fulfilled and like satisfied with my life right now. Just in like the art I'm creating and like the music I'm making and just, you know, the fact that I'm able to release it consistently like makes me super happy. So if I'm able to build up a fan base to the point where I can live comfortably off my music and continue creating art, like that's it for me. That's all. I would be so ecstatic if I could make that happen, you know what I mean? So that's like the minimum of what I want to be.
The minimum threshold, and then anything above that is like, awesome. Well, awesome, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, especially seeing as we don't really know each other, and you know my podcast isn't super big, so I always appreciate people spending some time with me and kind of delving into some music stuff. Is always awesome. So yeah, appreciate it, man, and all the best.
Dude, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime, man.